Okay. Wow. So, guys, welcome to another edition, programming edition with Obed Krampah. Okay. So today I'm going to continue with JavaScript. Okay. I'm going to continue with JavaScript. I'm going to complete the series what I was teaching. So if you are going to watch this video, it means that you have watched the previous video, or you have to watch the previous video I did on JavaScript. I want to end JavaScript today. Okay, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show a video of my previous JavaScript tutorial. No, or you check out from the my videos and watch the previous video I did on JavaScript. Because today I'm going to teach a lot of topics on JavaScript. Okay, and I'm going to do tutorials. Okay, and I'll show you a code I wrote on a spin game using JavaScript. Okay, so that's basically what we are going to do. All right, and I did a video on Java. JavaScript and Java are not the same. I'm teaching Java and JavaScript at the same time. Java and JavaScript are not the same. It's just like honey and honeymoon. You get it right? They are two different things. They mean two different things, honey and honeymoon. Right? So a video I did on JavaScript, but I played a video at the background. I played a music video at the background of the JavaScript video I did. The Java video I did. So it was flagged for copyright. Okay, it was flagged for copyright under the YouTube policies, copyright policies, that the music I'm playing has copyright. So I can't use it in the video. So the video is here. So in my next tutorials, I'm going to teach Java programming language. So you can request for the video from me. If you are going to follow these tutorials, you have to request it. So this is the video that was flagged for copyright. All right.
Hello. Welcome to another exciting YouTube tutorial with Obed Krampah. Today we are going to do an extension of what we did the other day. The other day I explained the theory behind classes and objects. I explained method. I explained arguments.
In this video I was teaching Java, but I played the music at the background. All right. I played music at the background, so it was flagged for offside. It was flagged for copyright.
The long is for integer. It's the name of the object here to initialize. So now width is having the value of 10, height is having the value of 20, and depth is having.
I was teaching Java programming language, but it has been flagged for copyright because I played
the value of 15
at the background. This is the music I was playing at the background, Adele. Okay, hello, and it has been flagged for copyright under the YouTube copyright policies. So if you want to understand Java programming language, it means that you have to personally request for this video. All right. So in my next Java tutorials, I will continue where I ended with these tutorials. So it means if you have to understand my next tutorials on Java programming language, it means that you have to request personally for this video. All right, good. So let me take it off and let's begin. Right, let's begin today's JavaScript. I want to end the series on JavaScript. I'm going to teach functions. I'm going to teach math object, document object. I'm going to teach functions with argument, functions with parameters, calling function from a function. There's a bunch of things I'm going to teach today. All right. So let's get started. But I'm going to close the camera on me. Right. I'm going to close the camera. I think it's pretty dark here. Okay. So I'm going to
certainly weren't at a library. Yeah, I was with a friend. A friend?
Wow, I'm going to close the camera on me, okay? When I'm done, I'll open the camera on me and explain things. So,
By the name of Lana Turner. Yes, it is.
let's get started. First,
His name was Julia Jean Turner. He's a real Idaho pig fucking name. Anyway, guess what she did? Our first meeting,
all right.
we waited 20 minutes. When she said,
let me close this.
"You ever keep me waiting again?
Let me open my notepad.
Your career.
Let's get started.
I will destroy you. I will fucking annihilate you." And guess
So,
what? He was never late again. Almost 5 minutes early. Sorry.
what we are going to do is that I'm going to teach you functions, all right? We are starting with functions, things that we are going to learn. First, we are starting with functions, JavaScript function. A function can perform or is used to perform many tasks, all right? A function can perform or is used to perform many tasks, right? Let me put some document here. Okay, I'm teaching functions in JavaScript. Okay, all right. So the next thing I want to tell you is that any program in JavaScript is dependent on functions function declaration. You get it? Any program is dependent in JavaScript is dependent on function declaration. Okay, and when you declare a function, what you are going to write, the program you are building is determines what you write inside the function. When you declare my goodness, I'm in a haste. When you declare a function, the program you are writing, program you are coding determines what you will write in the function brackets. Good. All right, so let me mute the background. All right, so declaring functions takes code and is between the opening and closing brackets. Okay, the format for function declaration. Format for function declaration is it has to come with the keyword function. Okay, then let's go something like footbed. All right, then you have your parentheses here. All right, then you have your code here. All right, the opening and the closing curly brackets here means that we have declared these functions and what will be placed inside this opening and closing brackets here, belongs to this function called footbed. When you declare a function, what shows that this footbed here is a function is the keyword that we have assigned to it, we have put before it. Do you get it? Right. So let's go on. So I have this here. Right? I have JavaScript code. So the opening and closing bracket will take JavaScript code. So this basically shows that we have declared a function. This is the format for a function declaration. All right, good. So the browser will execute all the code inside the opening and closing brackets. Do you get it? The browser will execute this, what we have here, opening and closing bracket. The browser will execute it. So let me clean this. Let me clean this. All right. Let me clean this and put some code here. Like example, var a is equal to 5. B is equal to 2. C is equal to 7. All right. So it is in between the opening. This code here is in between the opening and closing bracket here, and this code belongs to the function. This code belongs to the function called foodbet. Do you get it? Good. Because foodbet here is a function because of the keyword function here. All right. And this opening and closing bracket here shows that this code belongs to this function called foodbet because it's in between the closing and opening and closing bracket. So when we want our code, this code to execute after this closing bracket, when we write foodbet, then we put our parentheses here, this code will execute. Do you get it? I'll put more examples for you to get it. All right. When you want to call your function to execute this foodbet, we want it to execute what we have placed here. After we have closed this bracket, we will write foodbet here. Then we will press. When we are using an IDE or notepad, we will just press, or we will run it in our JavaScript code. When we run it in an HTML, we save it .html and we run it. Foodbet will execute this. Good. So I don't need to explain var. I've already explained var when I was starting this video. All right. Good. So let's go on. I have a lot of things to explain today. Adding parameters to functions. Good. Adding parameters to functions. What are parameters? Parameters are what we find inside the parentheses of a function. This function called foodbet, you can see that we have open this is bracket, but what is this? Yes, whatever it is. When we put something here, cake, and we put Milo, put nesting, adding parameters to functions. So this shows that we have added parameters to functions. Do you get it? We have cake, Milo, nesting. They all belongs to the function foodbet, and this cake, Milo, nesting are found in the parentheses of this foodbet, the opening and closing bracket. So this is what I'm teaching concerning function, adding parameters to functions. This is the parameters I've added: cake, Milo, nesting. Good. All right. So the next thing I want to teach is that let's assume we have a function. Then we have cake and Milo, a variable called cake. It's a parameter of this foodbet. You get it? Then we have another variable called Milo. Do you get it? You can simply give the cake value, the cake variable, which has a value of 5. If we assign this a here, let me change the a to cake. All right, let me change the a to cake. Let me change the a to cake. All right. Then we have something called another var here, another variable here, var. We have var water. I can simply cake here is in the parenthesis of the function footbed. Do you get? Then I have a code in between this. I have a code in between this opening and closing curly bracket of this function called footbed. Then var here, cake is equal to 5. Do you get it? Then I have another var water. Var means water here is a variable. Good. And I want to assign the value of this cake here, 5, to water. So all I will do is that water is equal to cake. It means that now water has the value of 5. Because cake here is having the value of 5. Do you get it? Good. So let's continue. There's a lot of things I have to teach. Go. How to use multiple parentheses. Okay. Good. How to use multiple parentheses. I have taught adding parameters to function. Now let me go to how to use multiple parameters. How to use multiple parameters. Good. How to use multiple parameters. So let me declare a function. Alright, so I've declared a function called really cool. Then let me put this inside the parenthesis of the function.
I choose alive. Oh, they found him alive. Mrs. Cooper. Mrs. Cooper. Did she say Mr. Cooper is alive?
Cool car. Cool place. Alright, I'm writing this. When I finish, I'll explain it. Document.write.
Do it again, you're fired. That's a wrap. Oh no. Okay, folks, that's our day. Bye. Home.
You get it now. Document.write. Then let me put this here.
Parks and Recreation will shoot at the actual home. But actually have to do around. I was thinking.
Then let me write my car is a
Smart. Okay. Oh yeah, I don't know how that would work. She's white, she's blonde, she's from London. So she's not paid anymore. She's married. Yeah, listening.
my car is a cool car. Let me put this here. And I drive it to drive it I drive.
Oh, that's good. I'm not that just any pictures. If you want the best video. You know that is too good. That's good.
Alright, good.
I heard you're getting a print.
So I'm trying to explain something here. How to use multiple parameters. Good. Now let's get into the explanation. I'm going to write var cool car is equal to Mercedes Benz, right? Now I'm going to write var who place is equal to landing. You should get the concept right now. Good. Then I come here. Then I write really cool. Under the closing bracket here of this function called cool car. Cool, really cool. Do get it? The function is called really cool. And it has the parenthesis of cool car and cool place. They have the opening bracket here. They have the closing bracket here. So I wrote really cool here, the name of this function. The name of this function. After the closing bracket, I wrote this really cool. I wrote it after the closing bracket. Then let me put the parenthesis there. You get it? Good. Now, what this code is going to tell us, what this code is going to tell us here, that function really cool has parameters. It has parameters of what? The parenthesis of this really cool function has cool car as a variable and has cool place as a variable. But the cool car here has the value of Mercedes-Benz. Assignment operator has assigned the value of this cool car to Mercedes-Benz, or has assigned Mercedes-Benz to this cool car. It means the variable cool car here has the value of Mercedes-Benz, and the value of this cool place variable here has the value of landing. You know why this is a variable? Because of a var. And when anything that is found in the parameters of a function are variables. Good. And I have written document.write. You know what document.write stands for if you have been following my JavaScript code. Good.
There isn't going to be any war. Not going to be.
I've written my car is a. Now I've bring plus. I've bring an colon. Good. And I've bring a quotation mark. Sorry, I've put the cool plus cool car in this quotation marks, and I drive it to. I've put this also in a quotation marks. Let me put my positive sign here. What I'm doing here is that I'm explaining something as in theory, but I'm trying to use a little code to explain the theory to you. When I'm done explaining this theory, you do a proper coding. Okay, good. So what I have actually done here is that this cool car and cool place, I have given them the value of what? Mercedes-Benz and land. So when after the closing bracket, when I call this really cool function, it is called what? Really cool. The function here is called really cool, and it has what? A parenthesis here. So when I call this really cool to execute, when we are using notepad or we are using an ID and I call this really cool, I press the play button or Chrome. I log into Chrome, I open Chrome and I run this code. It is going to print document.write is a JavaScript what? It's an object. It's a document object that is used to print information. You get it? It's a document object. So it's going to print my car is a cool car here has the value of Mercedes-Benz. So it's going to print my car is a Mercedes-Benz, and I drive it to a. I drive it to. Let me clean this. The English is not right. I drive it to landing, and I've put cool place in the code here because cool place here has the value of landing. When I call this really cool, so this is basically how to use functions. This is the name of the function called really cool. It is a function because it has the keyword here function in its declaration. It has a parenthesis. We have added it has parameters, okay, and the parameters has variables in it. Then we have assigned values to the parameters in the function called really cool. So when we print this, when we use the document object to print this, is going to give us really cool. But before you print this to give us the value of what is inside this function, After you have closed the bracket for this function here, we open a bracket here, we close it here. After we have closed the bracket for this function called really cool, if you want to execute, if you want to call this function to execute what it contains inside it, after the closing bracket, you write really cool, then you bring the parenthesis. So when we call this function, it is going to print my car is a, it's going to print this statement. My car is a Mercedes Benz and I drive it to London. Good. Alright, so let's continue from there. What else can we do? I got you. What else can we do? I'm trying to explain some theory before we hit the main. Wow. So adding return statements to function. Let's do this. This is very important. Adding return statements to function. Adding.
Alright, now we farm in this what this sheet.
Okay. Adding. What does the adding do? My goodness. Adding return statements to function. Good. Format of a return statement. So format return statement. Format of a return, for example, to return a value of a variable good text, the return statement looks like this. The format is the keyword, we use the keyword return, then we use the name of the variable name. Okay, and put your semicolon. This is the format of return statement. Okay, this is the format of return statement. Any return statement is returning the value of the variable. If you use a return statement, it is returning the value of variable. Okay, we are treating a topic called adding return statements to function. Okay, good. So I'm going to put out a code here. All right, I'm going to put out a code here, then I think this example I'm giving you is no, I should do what? I think, wow. So I'm going to modify this code, adding what? Return statement to functions. Okay, so let me clean this. This one was how to use multiple parameters. I'm going to modify this code and use it to explain adding return statements to function. Let me cut this. Come and put it here. Adding return statements to function. Good. You see that when I wrote this function, it has no return statement. Someone will ask, we are using function and we are using return. I think these keywords are familiar somewhere. You've met it before. Yes. I told you that I don't have my laptop connected to the internet. I would have explained to you that to understand JavaScript, you have to know all the 32 keywords or reserved words in JavaScript. One of them is return keyword, one of them is function. So all the 32 keywords, I'm using them in our coding. At the end of the syllabus, you will get familiar with all the keywords. Good. And today I'm treating adding return statements to function. This code here does not include a return statement, so I'm going to modify this code here to include a return statement. But just take a critical look at this code. When we declared a function and we added parameters with a function with multiple parameters to this code. Then we give the parameters a value. Then we use the document object to print the value, to print what our code holds. Okay, after closing the bracket, we call this really cool function here. We called it after the closing bracket to execute what this code was doing. So when you write something inside the opening and closing bracket of a function, and after you close the function, to let your code execute what you wrote inside the function, you just have to call this function really cool. And after the closing bracket, that is what we did here. We call the function called really cool. But adding return statements to function, let's do away with this really cool example. Okay, then let me modify this code to include a return statement. All right, I'm going to modify this code to include a return statement. So basically, what I am going to do is just I'll write the keyword return, right? Then I'll write the name of the function. Okay, I'll just write really cool. Good. Now put the semicolon there. You see, when you are using the return keyword, you see it is included inside the opening and closing brackets. Now I didn't write the name of the function here outside the closing bracket. I have included the return keyword with the function name inside the opening and closing bracket of this really cool function. So the return keyword is before the closing bracket. It is inside the function called really cool. You say, so we have written return really cool. So return really cool. What does really cool hold? Really cool holds cool car, cool place, var cool car, Mercedes Benz semicolon, var cool place is equal to landing, document dot write, print my car is a cool place, blah blah blah. That is what really cool holds. Really cool here function holds all these statements, all these variables inside the opening and closing brackets of this function really cool. If you are inside the opening and closing bracket of a function, when you are called to execute, the function name will execute what is inside its opening and closing bracket. Do you get it? Good. That is what I explained to you previously. Okay. Good. Now I've included a return keyword. Then I say return really cool. Really cool. What is really cool returning? I've used the keyword called return cool word. When I've written return really cool here is printing the information called document.write. My car is a cool car and I drive it to cool place. But cool car here has the value of what? Cool car here has the value of Mercedes Benz. Okay. And cool place here has the value of landing. Do you understand? Cool car here and cool place here are variables. And I included them in the parentheses of the function called really cool. And they are variables because I have declared a variable. Var is used to declare a variable. So I have written here that return really cool. So what is really cool returning? Really cool is going to return what? All this. Do you get it? I previously told you that what you write inside the opening and closing bracket of a function is determined by what you have commanded your function, the program you have commanded your function to operate, the program you are operating, the program you are coding. Do you understand? So return really cool. When we execute this code, the output here will be, of course, when you use Notepad++, output will come. Then it will print here because we use the return keyword here, This is the return keyword, and this function is really cool. So when we execute this code, all right, when we execute this code, it will come as output. Then really cool here will print my car is a Mercedes Benz. And I drive it to London. Do you get it? Good. So I have explained the return keyword to you. Do you get it? This is the format of the return statement. Return keyword is here. Variable name. Good here. So here it's returning what all this. What is a variable? I told you the definition of a variable. So return keyword here, this really cool here, is holding all the information of this document, this. So when we run this code, because we use the return keyword, we are going to get this output. My car is a Mercedes Benz and I drive it to London. Good. So now let me explain another thing to you. Calling functions in JavaScript. Haven't I taught that? Calling functions in JavaScript. Okay, calling functions. I'll modify this code to explain calling functions in JavaScript. So let me clean this. Okay, let me clean this. Adding what? Return statements to functions. Let me clean this. Now, so calling what? Calling functions in JavaScript. Calling functions. Yeah, calling functions in JavaScript is similar to what I wrote previously. Okay, calling functions in JavaScript. This is a code I want to explain here. Let me take this off. Calling functions in JavaScript. Okay, so function really cool. This is similar to, I don't need to explain this. This is similar to what we did. If you want to call a function in JavaScript, this function here is called really cool. All you have to write is that really cool after the closing bracket of the function. The really cool here is a function. After adding parameters to this function called really cool, we open a bracket and we close a bracket. So when you want to call this function called really cool to execute the code you wrote in between the opening and closing bracket of this function, you write what? After the closing bracket, you write really cool. Then you put the parentheses here. Bam. Then you put your semicolon here. So this function here, it means that we have called the function really cool. So what is going to happen here is that when we run this code, really cool is going to print my car is a Mercedes Benz.
You heard me. I love this person and not your
I drive
goddamn closer.
And I drive it to London. So calling functions in JavaScript, I have finished explaining this. Okay, so calling a function from another function, that's the next topic we are going to do. All right. Calling functions in JavaScript. The next topic we are going to do is calling a function from another function. All right, good. So I want to wipe off this code. Okay. Have I written the topic calling functions in JavaScript? Calling, good. Let me clean this. All right. Let me clean this. All right. Good. So let me write the topic. damn it. Calling functions from another function. Calling function from another function. Wow, I've explained function to you. Good, this is it. My car is a Mercedes Benz and I drive it to London. So I'm going to clean this. I'm going to clean really cool. Good. And I'm going to clean what? No. Let me leave this. So what we are calling function from another function. Good. What does the idea of calling function?
Don't let Henry do it. Whatever he's been doing, don't let him do it. That shouldn't have come in here.
Calling functions from another function. Wow.
Except you being a good man.
All right, so
You're about the first good man I've met in Hollywood.
let me explain this. Calling function from another function. This is English and it literally means that we have two functions here. Calling function from another function. It means we already have a function and we are going to call it from another function. Literally, it means two functions are going to work in our code. But in this code, we only have one function called really cool. Because the keyword function here means that we have declared a function. And apart from this really cool, which contains a keyword, which comes with a keyword function, we don't really have any variable here which starts with a function. So the only function we have in our code here is really cool. So what we are going to do is that to explain this topic, I'm going to add another function inside this code. Do get it? Good. So let's get started. So this function really cool has this inside it because the bracket close here, the closing bracket is here. Good. So to call a function from another function, let's simply means that it means that this function contains this code. This function really cool. This function really cool contains this code. Good. And so this function has closed. Okay. So let's declare another function. And see how we can call a function from another function. Just like the topic is stating, calling function from another. So function, let me write a function. Function, what name should I give it? I'm not. This one is really cool. And this one is I'm not cool. Oh. Sorry. It's supposed to be I'm not cool. Okay. So this function is called really cool. And it contains this information inside its opening and closing bracket. This function is also called what? I'm not cool. You get it? Good. Now I've opened it. Opening bracket, closing bracket. So what will be contained here? Calling function from another function. So what will be contained inside this code? All right. Good.
I'm gonna get you that screen. How hard I fight.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to put really cool here. Function. I'm not cool. Opening bracket, closing bracket. So what I'm going to do is that inside the opening and closing bracket of this function called I'm not cool, I'm going to put the name of this function really cool. So this is how I get it. Really cool. Then I put the now I bring my semicolon. Right. Good. So there's a function called I'm not cool, but it contains really cool. And inside this code, in the program that I'm writing here, really code here is a function, because in its previous declaration it has been declared as a function because it has the keyword function. Before we use really cool here, it has the keyword here called function. So in our code, really code here is going to appear in our code as a function. So I have written function I'm not cool, and I've put in really cool, which is also a function inside the opening and closing bracket of the function called I'm not cool. So when I come beneath this function called I'm not cool, after the closing bracket of this function called I'm not cool, good. When I put I'm not cool, when I put
Vivian Washington is the best actress for the children you know. I insist.
What do you think will happen?
If that doesn't happen,
This code is very simple. I'm feeling lazy to explain it. Okay. This function I'm not cool here contains really cool, and this really cool is a function. Do you get it? And this I'm not cool here, it has the opening and closing bracket here, and inside the opening and closing bracket it contains this function called really cool. And I'm not cool, see, I'm not cool ends at where the closing bracket is. So I'm not cool is responding to what is inside it opening and closing bracket, and what is inside the opening and closing bracket of I'm not cool is really cool. So after the closing bracket of I'm not cool, I wrote I'm not cool. And what does I'm not cool contains inside it opening and closing brackets? I'm not cool here contains
really
cool function. You get it? Good. So
I think I can go through this part. Your screen test has to go well.
So after the closing bracket of this function called I'm not cool, if you come and write I'm not cool here, I'm not cool here is going to execute what is inside it opening and closing bracket, and what is inside the opening and closing bracket of I'm not cool here is really cool. So it means I'm not cool is also going to print my car is a Mercedes Benz and I drive it to London. Good. I told you that simple. I told you that when you declare a function, what is inside the opening and closing bracket of the function is what will execute when after the closing bracket we call the function. And now after the opening and closing bracket of I'm not cool function, we wrote I'm not cool. It means that we have called the I'm not cool function here. I'm not cool function here to execute what is inside its closing bracket, and what is inside the closing bracket of I'm not cool is really cool, what I've highlighted. So I'm not cool is going to print the information that this really cool contains, and this really cool contains document.write my car is a cool car, it's a Mercedes Benz and I drive it to London. So we have called a function from another function. Yes, this is a function. We have called this function from this function called I'm not cool. This function called really cool. We have called it from I'm not cool because after the closing bracket, we wrote I'm not cool function to execute. And I'm not cool function here is going to execute really cool because really cool is inside the opening and closing bracket of the I'm not cool function. Do you get it? So this is how to explain calling function from another function. Let's move on to another tutorial. Good.
I killed for you, kid, and I ain't fooling. I'm the biggest star in the world. Make yourself useful, grab me a tissue, you big little crime.
All right. We are moving to a new set of topic. All right. Everything in JavaScript is built from function. So this is the beginner. This is the foundation. All right. We are going to learn event handlers.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Yeah, but you remember when I said about actors? They're garbage, can't be trusted.
Event handling.
I didn't live in town. You could use some friends, probably.
Good. Event handlers in JavaScript. What is an event handler? An event handler is a predefined JavaScript property of an object. Event handler is a predefined JavaScript property of an object. That means JavaScript has properties of an object. So go and Google for what are the properties of an object in JavaScript. What are the predefined properties of JavaScript objects? Good. So what is an event? And I'm going to teach you that. Examples of event. What is an event? Event is something that takes place on our web page. Do you get it? Event is something that takes place on our web page. Like so, examples of event. Examples of events. Events are what actually happens on a web page. What happens on a web page is an event. Good. So moving from here, to use an event handler, you must know the keyword for the event handler and where to place the event handler within the HTML code. Where to use an event handler. I'm going to show you using an event handler in an HTML element. HTML. Good. using an event handler in an HTML element. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to write a code to explain using an event handler in HTML element. Beginning of code. Good. I'm going to write a code. After writing the code, I will explain it, right? Yes, we are delving deeper into JavaScript, right? Good. Using an event handler in an HTML element. Good. Alright, so I was looking for something to teach you before I put out the code. Alright, so I'm going to teach you something called methods of the document object. Methods of the document object. So you can later on subsequently Google about methods of the document object in JavaScript, right? But for now, I'm going to teach you one method because I'm going to use that method in this code using an event handler in an HTML element. I'm going to give you an example relating to this code, this topic. I'm going to give you an example relating to this topic I have highlighted here. And in order to give you a code relating to this topic I have highlighted, you have to explain something under methods of the document object. So I'm going to explain one document. The document dot get element by id method allows you to access any element in the HTML document in capital letter HTML document that has an ID attribute using the value of its ID. Wow, the document dot get element by ID method allows you to, the parenthesis here means that document dot get document, this document dot get element by ID. The parenthesis here shows you that it's a document object. Do you remember any example of document object? You remember that when we were writing document dot write, document dot write, document dot write is also what? A document object that is used to print information on our screen, the output of our code. And this document object, this document dot get element by ID also has what? It has what? It also allows you to access the element in the HTML document that has an ID attribute. That has an ID attribute using using the value of its ID attribute. Good. It means that if you have come across this document dot write, it's a document object in JavaScript, and this document dot get element by ID is also a document object in JavaScript. So what, as a researcher, you want to do more is that learn about all the documents objects in JavaScript and what they are used, period. Do you get it? Learn about all the document objects in JavaScript and what they are used for. They say what? The document dot get element method. So learn about what? All the document object method. I have told you that in our previous code we have used document dot write. I told you it's also a document object method. Good. So learn about all the document object methods in JavaScript and what they are used for. Period. You know that this document dot write object is used to print information. Now you have learned about document dot get element by ID method allows you to access any element in the HTML document that has an attribute using the value of its ID attribute. Good. So I'm going to use this document dot get element by ID example. I'm going to use it in the code to explain it, to show you how it is used. I've already showed you how this document dot write, which is also a document object method in JavaScript, how it is used. Now I'm going to show you how this one is also used. So for the rest of the code, go and learn about all the document object method in JavaScript and what they are used for. Do you get it? Good. So now what we are going to do is let me clean this off and start writing the code. Are you getting it? Good. I'm writing the code. So let me put out this here. Function hi and by. I've already explained function to you. Hi and by. Let me put the parenthesis here. Window dot alert hi semicolon window dot alert Good. Let me put my semicolon. Now let me close the parenthesis of this. Good. Now behind this, beneath this closing bracket for this function called high and by, you see, whatever is contained here belongs to this function high and by. What is outside this function is on its own. Do you get it? Functioning. So outside this opening and closing brackets, when we call high and by, it is going to execute what is inside high and by function. What is inside high and by here is windows.alert high, windows.alert by. Do you get where my cursor is? And it has closed, the function has closed. So outside this function, when we call high and by, it is going to execute what is here. Good. So beneath the closing bracket, I'm going to write a code. That is where you should pay attention. var high button is equal to document dot get element by id to bracket. See, you won't understand what I'm doing unless I'm done and I explain it. All right. High button dot high the explanation of this code is very simple. It is not difficult at all. Good. All right. So I'm going to explain this code here. Function beginning from here to this point. I'm going to write a code to explain using an event handler in an HTML element, and the code will include what we just learned, functions. This is what I've done. This what I've highlighted. I told you I'm going to write a code, and the code will explain how to use an event handler. Good. All right. So let me explain this code to you. Here we declared a function called high and by. Inside the opening and closing brackets of this function called high and by, we put windows.alert, then we put windows.alert by. Good. Then beneath it, after the closing bracket, I wrote var high button is equal to document dot get element by id. Then I put this here, say hi. Then I put high button here dot on click is equal to high by. High by here is the same as this function. Good. Because wherever we call this high and by, it's referring to what is here, the code here. This is high and by. High and by here is a function. And this function, when we call this function here, this function that I've put here is going to respond to what is here. So the meaning of, you already understand this, that this is a function declaration, and the opening and closing brackets here, this function, it means this function contains this statement. Windows.alert here is also a document object. That is why I said go and Google about all the document objects. Good. So now I have var hi button is equal to document.getElement by ID. What did I tell you that the document.get? I told you that the document.getElement by ID, this allows you to access any element in the HTML document. Good. Any element. Put this down. This document.getElement allows you to access any element in the HTML. Allows you to access the elements in any HTML document. Bam. The function of this document.getElement by ID allows you to access the element in HTML document. Good, let's put it there. Now I'm going to explain var hi button. I've told you the function of this. Good. Allows you to access the element in any HTML document. What are the elements in HTML document? Elements in HTML document documents are button, checkbox, button, checkbox, and what? Text box, drop down box, drop down. Good. These are all called graphical user interface, which you learn in previous in subsequent tutorials in Java or Python or whatever. Graphical user interface. You see, when you go to a web page, you can click a button. Then you have a checkbox. They will tell you to select any choice. You have a text box. That is where you input your name and data. You have a drop down box. When you want to sign up to Facebook, it will ask you that drop down box, are you a male or female? These are all called what? Graphical user interface. Then we say the function of document.getElement here by ID. That's what allows you to access the element in HTML document. The element in HTML document are button, checkbox, text box, drop down box. Good. So we come back to this code. I'm going to explain this code. var hi button. The button here is an HTML element. Button. Good. So we have declared var hi button. Button is an element. So in order to make it a variable, we added hi to it, so that it stands for hi button. Do you understand it? The var here means that we have declared this button as a variable, and in order to make this our button or our code a variable, we have to add hi button to it, because the button, if you write button alone is an HTML element, so we cannot use it as a variable name. So to use the HTML element button as a variable name, we added hi button to it. Good. Hi button is equal to document.getElement by ID. Document.getElement by ID allows you to access the element in any HTML document. So we are using this code, document.getElement, to access the element in the HTML document. And the element in the HTML document that we are using in this code is button. And in order to declare the button as a variable, we added hi. Good. So what does the say hi here stands for? In the parenthesis of the document.getElement by ID, The document.element.id method allows you to access any element in the HTML document that has an ID attribute using the value of its ID attribute. This button here is an element, and if you use an HTML element form, any element, this button, when you write a button, it has to has an attribute. So this button here has an attribute called say hi. So when you want to use the document.getElementById to access this button element, this element button, you have to add the attribute of this button to the document.getElementById. You have to add it inside the parenthesis of the document.getElementById. Do you get it? That is why say hi is inside the parenthesis of document.getElementById into bracket say hi. So the say hi here is the attribute of what? The button element. You see, the document.getElementById allows you to access the element in any HTML element that has an ID attribute. So this element, hi button, has an attribute of say hi. Good. So after this semicolon, what did we write here? Hi button dot on click is equal to hi and button. So let's put this aside and let's come to the explanation of hi button dot on click. You know that hi button here is the HTML element. So it's a variable now and it's a button, it's an HTML element, and we have added dot on click. This is what I am going to explain. What is dot on click? The dot on click is event handlers in JavaScript. Examples of event handlers is what? Clicking a mouse button, clicking a button on a page, moving the mouse over a link on a page. Do you get it? Good. So in order to add an event handler to an HTML element, you write the name of the element, then you bring dot on click. The dot here is a dot operator in JavaScript. It is used to concatenate, or it is used to conjoin an event handler to a button, to an HTML element. So hi button dot on click. The on click here is an event handler. So go and Google on. You have to Google on. All the event handlers in JavaScript and what they are used for. Good. In this tutorial, I've used one of the event handlers called onClick, how it is used. Okay, so go and Google on all the event handlers in JavaScript. I've told you how onClick is used. Good. So this using an event handler in an HTML document, this is how it is done. I've explained the button here to use an element in order to declare this element as a variable so that we can add the onClick, the event. The onClick is an event handler. So we have added hi button dot hi hyphen button dot onClick means that we have added an event handler onClick to the hi button, and it's equal to hi hyphen and hi underscore and underscore by. Hi underscore and underscore by is familiar here, is the name of our function here. Good. So when we click this button hi button dot onClick, when we click it, now hi button dot onClick is equal to hi underscore and underscore by, And hi underscore end underscore by here is a function here, and that function contains windows.alert, windows.alert hi, windows.alert by. Do you get it? Good. So when we click the button in this code, hi button dot on click is equal to hi and by. So when we click the button, we have added event handler to respond to this. Hi button dot on click is equal to hi underscore end underscore. I've told you that anytime you see the assignment sign, it means that what is here is equal to what is here. What is on the left hand side is equal to what is on the right hand side. Good. So now when we click the button, we have added event handler called onClick to the button. So when we click the button is also equal to hi underscore and underscore by, and hi underscore and underscore by in the function here has windows.alert and windows.alert by in its opening and closing bracket. So when we click this button, a window will pop up and tell us hi. Then we will click it again. Then a window will pop up and tell us bye. Do you get it? Good. Now let's move on. Defining objects. Wow. How to create an object and assign the properties of the object. Document object. Go and Google on all the document objects. Methods of the document object, properties of the document objects. Methods. Our next topic is properties of the document object and methods of the document object. Good. So let's Google properties document and methods document objects. Good. I want to explain objects, right? I think in Java tutorials I explain object, but I want to explain object. Object is something that is real. Object is something that is real. Do you get it? For instance, car. Car is an object, right? So properties of the car. Properties of the car are seats, seat belts, dashboard, radio, speaker, tie. Good. The car is an object because car contains all this. A car has seat belt, dashboard. So another object I can give you example of object is what? If I write a man has what? Hand. A man is an object. A man has what? Hand. legs, stomach. So man here is an object, and hand, legs, stomachs are properties. Do you get it? Good. So I have explained object and its properties. Now let's move on. If you are writing a code and you have car as an object and you have these properties, to represent the properties of an object in your code, you represent them with variables. Do you get it? To represent the car as an object, the properties of the car, the properties of an object in your code, you represent them with variables. So seat or and dashboard and everything, speaker will be variables, and every variable and all these variables will be will be assigned to a value. Thus, variables are always assigned to values. Good. If you are writing a code and you have car as an object, then the properties of the car are seat belt, dashboard, radio, speaker, and tire. To represent these properties in your code, you will use variables. Okay, then when you use them as a variables, you have to assign values to them. That's variables always are assigned to values. Good. So let's take, for instance, car is an object. The car has seat. Seat is a property of the car object. Now you have to give seat values. So you can write seat is equal to red. Do you get it? Seat is equal to red. Now you want to have what? A lot of seats. So seat 1, seat 2 is equal to blue. It means that seat here has value of what? Red, blue. So your car has a lot of seats, and all the many seats have what? Different colors. So the colors are the values of the seat properties. Good. But I want to explain something to you. How do you access these properties to get their values? The answer is that you can access these variables to give it values by using something in JavaScript called the dot operator. Good. For example, coming. We are getting serious now. Car is an object, right? Seat is a property. Good. Now giving the value to the property seat, you use the dot operator, and this keyword. You get it? Good. All I'm trying to explain is that you have sit as a property. You want to give sit a value. You have to use the dot operator and this keyword. So how do we use it? That is what I'm going to teach. So let's say function car seats. Then we come here. This dot seats is called red. Good. This is how to give value to the property of an object. You use the this keyword and the dot operator. Then you bring the name of the property. Then you bring the assignment operator. Then you write the value. Good. So let's move on. I think I have a lot of. I'm going to explain something called instance of an object. Good. What is an instance? What is an instance of an object? I'm going to answer this question indirectly, okay? So the answer is, if you want to add more values to the property, then you have to create an instance of an object. So how do we create an instance of an object? Good. I say instance of an object is what is an instance of an object. Then I wrote what is an instance of an object. Then I answered it as, if you want to add more values to the property, then you have to create an instance of an object. So how do we create an instance of an object? I might not answer this question. Okay, I might not answer this. Creating an instance of an object. Creating an instance of an object. Creating an instance of an object. So we have the function car. Then the car has properties. Seat. Good. Then we have assigned value. We have used the this dot. Seat is called what? Red. Good. Now, so how do we create an instance of an object? Now we create an instance of an object to add more values to the property. So this property car, this property, the car is a object. This property seat, this property seat. My goodness, can't return back. Okay, car, let's say car seat. So car is an object, seat is a property. Then we have added the seat as red, meaning it has the value, the property has the value of red. Okay, so good. Now we want to create an instance of an object. The importance of creating an instance of an object is to add more values to the property. Good. So our object is called car. So when we write var Toyota underscore car, Toyota underscore car, and we write red, blue, green, var Mercedes Benz, write white, grey, black. Good. Then we write what? If you write var Mercedes Benz underscore car, then we write var Toyota underscore car is equal to new car, red, blue, green. Then we write var underscore car is equal to seat. Okay, we had seat underscore car dot red. This means you have created an instance, right? Instance lets you to add more value. So I'll come back to this code. Okay, how to create an instance of an object. Come back to this code. Good. Math object and date object. Math we study document object. Now we're going to study math object, and we study date objects in JavaScript. I'm going to write a code telling you how to use the math object. Okay, good. So use the math object in JavaScript. Google on all the math objects, JavaScript and date objects JavaScript. Good. How to use the math object? How to use the properties. Good. How to use the properties of the math object in JavaScript, and how to use the methods of the math object in JavaScript. So we are going to do how to use the properties of the math object in JavaScript. I feel like this thing is stressful. The math object will help you calculate certain mathematics. Example. How the math object is useful. Example, if you want find or if you want to generate random numbers, you can use math object. I want to write a lot of code because I want to do theory. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to explain this code. All right. So let me give you something like, let me write var how the math object is used. For example, if you want to generate random numbers, you can use the math object. For instance, you want to find the radius, or you want to find the radius of a circle, you can use the math object. Example. So this example will be preceded by, you've declared a function. Okay, you've declared a function, right? Then you've given the function a condition, variables, that they should get the value or a value of an area. So if into bracket area is equal to this, you've declared variables for the object you are finding. Good. You are finding a variable for a square. You are finding a radius of a square. You've declared a variable for the area of a square. Okay, 4 times 4 times 4. So the variables is any side of the square will represent a variable. So we have a, b, c, d. So the values of the variables are 4, 2, 3, 8. So when the sum of the variables are 20, or 32. You can write var, example var. Then your variable, if the answer was stored in a variable called area, var area is equal to. Then you bring this math object, properties of this math object called math dot py, multiply by the answer you got, the variable that stored that answer. Let's say the variable that stored that answer was, the variable name was Sam. So math.py dot Sam. var area math.py dot Sam. So area in this code, area will give you the sum of the square multiplied by the property of the math object called math.py. Do you see? So I don't want to write a lot of code. This is theory, right? So this is how to use, after doing calculations, if you want to use the math object, properties of the math object, go and Google on math object in JavaScript and date object in JavaScript. If you want to, you make a program and you want to find a date object, you assign your variables to the date object, what you want, which variable is storing the name of what you are finding. Then you assign it to the date object. Okay, so it will give you the date. And when you are using the math object, you are finding area. After the area has stored the area, you are getting the area. After the sum of the square has been calculated, the area is going to store the math.py. That means the pi r square of this, the sum of the square. Do you get it? You say it's as simple as that. And this is the end of the tutorial. Thank you. And this is the end of JavaScript. Just go and do Google on math objects and JavaScript objects. So I want to show you this code. After I'm done with this, let me clear this off. I'm not saving it. I want to show you this code. This code is a JavaScript code I wrote for a food spin game, right? Good. So this is the code. It contains CSS and HTML. But let's focus on the JavaScript side. These are all what? CSS, cascading style sheet, right? Good. And this is what? This is the HTML. Good. But let's go to the JavaScript side. Here, scripts. This is functions that I taught you. So this function is called star. You know that the spin here is what? An attribute. So the attribute here is responding to an element. Good. Now this is a condition that we have given to it. Now see, document does, what is inside the bracket is an attribute dot value. When you see any code like this, document dot value, let me explain it. It's equal to, let me copy this, document dot value is equal to pass int document dot value plus. We have used the math here. Good. Let me explain this code. Good. No, let me close this and open a notepad. Let me close this and open a notepad. and explain this code. Good. Document.getValue. We did this today. You know that this is an attribute. Dot value. The dot value is what? Anytime you see document.getElement has attribute dot value is equal to. It means that what is here is being assigned to what is here. Pass int. Pass int is also what? Is also an integer type. Do you get it? It's an integer type. Pass it is got document dot value, then the attribute is here dot value plus pass int math dot floor. Math dot floor, math dot py are what? All examples of what? The math object in JavaScript. Properties of the math object. Math dot random. Anytime you see dot value here, it means that the answer in this element dot get element should be assigned to, should be exchanged, should be assigned to the value here. So it means that this document dot get value, it is being used to access an element in the HTML, and this is its attribute. So that value of that element dot value, the assignment sign here means that that value, that the element in this section code, it should be assigned to what is on this side. It's as simple as that. And the document dot get value here plus pass int is an integer type, a data type. Math dot floor here is a math object in JavaScript. Into bracket, math dot random here is also what? A math object. Multiply by 100 plus 1. It means that the element, the document dot get element, the HTML element here dot value means, the dot value here means that that value of that document dot HTML element should be assigned to what is here on the side of this. That is what I explained to you, that in coding, anytime you see a variable or a value on the left hand side of the assignment or operator, it means that value on that left side of the assignment operator is equal to, has been assigned to what is on the right side of the operator. That is why we have the assignment operator here. Good. So anytime you see document get element by id, the attribute of the id close dot value, it means that whatever that element is referencing should be assigned to what is here. So if we have the element for this score, the attribute here stands for the element id. So if the element is what? Its element value is 20. That 20 should be equal to the document of this plus math floor plus math random times 100 plus 1. It means that the 20 that this document dot get element dot value here is holding, that 20 will now be assigned to plus pass int is a data, the pass int is a data type, math dot floor. So 20 is going to multiply by the math dot floor plus the math dot random times 100 plus 1, exactly as that. So that is the meaning of, so document dot get element by id and as into bracket dot value means that the what is on the right hand side of the assignment operator, what is on the left hand side of the assignment operator is equal to what is on the right hand side of the operator. So we are ending JavaScript now. Good. Thanks for watching. My next tutorials, where's my lens? My next tutorials My next tutorials will be on Java programming language, and after Java programming language, I'm going to teach web server administration, networking. Good. So stick